Thank you very much, Comptroller, and can I thank all contributors to this evening's debate. And I note the support from all sides of the House, bar the government side, whom have decided to abstain. And just to pick on some of the points that were made by the government, and there was only two of them, I believe, that contributed to the debate. The two ministers, Darcy and Keogh. Sorry? Yes. In relation to what Minister Darcy had to say, he said there's a well-established framework of accountability, responsibility and control in operation at each level. It's an unfortunate statement to make today, of all days, when we're bringing forward amending legislation to the role of the CNAG, whom has at his disposal, as I said earlier, independent expertise, which can help and assist the government at no extra cost, despite the contention that again is contained in the government speak in relation to this issue. They say at one stage it would appear that this bill does not provide any additional powers for the CNAG. And then in conclusion it says, after much consideration, there may be a cost to the Exchequer if this bill is enacted. That's a contradiction, and tells me in no uncertain terms the way in which this has been interpreted by government, the way in which it has been considered is in a flippant way, and hasn't gone into any great detail to offer a contrarian view to what is put forward by ourselves and other members of the opposition here today. And I even acknowledge Sinn Féin in what they said, that they acknowledged the intention and the basis for which this has been put forward, and agreed with it, as I said, did other speakers here this evening. We obviously want to increase accountability and transparency across government. The speakers on the government side also said that for a minister to instruct the CNAG to intervene and to analyse and scrutinise a capital development project and the costs associated with it having gone over what was initially intended is in some way interfering with the independence of the office. I find that very hard to comprehend and understand, to be quite honest, especially again in the week, in the day that's in it. So I would be more impressed if it were the intention of government to reflect on this bill, to reflect on it, especially if it's passed by the Dáil, to improve the bill and improve upon the intention that is contained within it, and improve upon the fact that there is at their disposal, as is plain as the nose in your face, the ability from within the state's machinery to act in an independent assessment of capital projects, and not leave us in a predicament whereby, since the mismanagement and poor management and abysmal way in which this has been managed by government and the process that was put in place in relation to the Children's Hospital, we would not be floundering now to find out what impact or what effect it has on other projects throughout the country, because it's not yet clear, from what I've heard and what I saw from the Minister for Public Expenditure speak about the cutbacks that he says will take place as a result of this. For example, he said in relation to the A5 road that the 27 million, let alone the problems and the difficulties with the Assembly not being in place, unfortunately, but that even allowing for that, it may be the end of this year before that can be drawn down or can be passed over. So it's not a cut from this year's Exchequer at all then, if it comes at the end of the year. We will be insisting on, and this would have been something again that we could have asked the CNAG to provide for in the event of the government not being forthcoming with it, but this Dáil, especially on this side of this House, will be insisting on more detailed information from government to provide members of this House and by association their constituents with details of what projects, what communities will be at the loss of the initial commitment that was made by government when they were travelling the country with a series of roadshows. And we can't now have one roadshow to tell us exactly where we stand. And it's not only this year we worry about, and it's not as if you can just move this from year to year and it ends up only supposedly being 100 million. You made commitments to the tune of almost 500 million that will now have to be reprofiled, as the Taoiseach said. And I am only conscious of the commitment the same Taoiseach gave to ourselves, but more importantly to the nation when he spoke on national radio last Sunday week, when he said within 10 days everybody would be aware of the implications in relation to the knock-on effect of capital development programme in this country. And, you know, for the likes of the OPW to say, and they've been more forthcoming than any other, it would appear, at this stage, in saying, for example, 3 million will come from the flood relief scheme. Well, as a representative whom is probably affected by that, I will be insisting on what schemes and what projects within the flood relief scheme will be affected and will not go ahead, despite the commitment that was given by government last year and previously in relation to the funding that was provided there. But aside from that at all, and that will play out in the coming days as it should and as it will, and as is what would be expected of us to extract from you, there is no doubt that one of the main lessons, as I said initially, in relation to how the government responds to this fiasco and this debacle and the colossal overspend was immediately to rush to the private sector to get them to carry out an analysis and relevant scrutiny. And as other speakers have alluded to, there are many other demanding projects in the offing, not least the broadband programme and the many billions that will be expended there, and the huge expectation there is on the part of the public to ensure that that is available to every house. But it is available at a cost that we need to know, and we need to know that there are processes in place to ensure that the taxpayer's interest is protected. And if it were such that there was an indication of an overrun at a certain point, that this legislation could allow the CNAG and its office to their expertise to analyse and scrutinise that to see how such cost overrun could be arrested. Because you simply look at another aspect of the National Children's Hospital debacle, it appears that the initial contract provided for at least a 4% inflation, cost of construction inflation year on year. At least, it said. That didn't stop it going to 8 if that's what presented itself. And that, I understand, is what happened. And that's, you know, it was Deputy Fleming that said it. The initial rush on the part of those with responsibility in this area to get on site, you know, was purely to meet the aspirations of their political advancement, at the fault of not having proper and adequate processes to ensure that any contract subsequently could be tight and could be in the interest and protect the interest of the taxpayer and ensure that their funds were spent wisely and appropriately and delivered upon the commitment that was made initially. Because, as many speakers have said, we're all interested. We're all of the opinion, of course, and many governments previously have been, driven by the desire to put that facility in place to ensure children are afforded the best possible care and attention and service from the state from a health perspective. And that's not diminished in any way by any of the commentary that we've made. We merely do so in the best interest of ensuring that other projects that we're committed to can be delivered, whether it be in Waterford, whether it be in my own constituency or beyond. But there were real commitments made on behalf of government, by government, whom had at their disposal taxpayers' funds and whom shouldn't be thrift with that spending or that responsibility for their political gain. And that's all we want to ensure. We're not interested in heads, we're not interested in playing political games. There's bigger pictures at play, as we all know. And, you know, we can't stand idly by in this jurisdiction when chaos reigns in Westminster, when chaos reigns in the North, unfortunately, despite the fact that the Good Friday Agreement and what was contained within it, which was hard fought and hard won, but thankfully delivered to give the potential for the type of democracy up there that we have in other jurisdictions. But our partners, or I won't say our partners, but our colleagues in Sinn Féin, unfortunately, you know, are part of an unfortunate world record at this stage in relation to not taking their seats It's a disease that they can't seem to rid themselves of, but it's not just at their expense that is unfortunate, but it's at the expense of us all. It's at the expense of this island's prosperity and its potential to succeed economically and socially. But more importantly, from our perspective, the Good Friday Agreement has the potential to protect our security, and that, above all else, is paramount. And you know, we won't be using this unfortunate mismanagement and misappropriation almost of funds for political gain. We think too much of those that give us the privilege to be here to do that, and that continues to be the raison d'etre why we are committed to this country being united in its efforts to respond to that challenge. And obviously a united government and a united Dáil is essential to ensure that the people are rest assured that that commitment is real and meaningful. Thank you.